you were below 10,000 followers and you went up to over 100,000 followers in a really short period of time. So can you tell us the story behind it?
I was very surprised, and it, like I said, it came in a moment, and this is why I really want to challenge all the people out there who are not sure, can I put this out? Will it like reach people? Does it even make sense? Just create. On the day this reel went viral, I got thousands of messages. I'm not kidding. And I was in a situation at my life where I felt like really low and worthless. From one second to the others, I had like more than 300 job requests that I was overwhelmed. And with a bit of luck and a bit of faith, now like half a year later, I'm at a completely different point in my life. I'm actually like, this threw me in exactly the direction where I wanted to go anywhere.
Tanja, welcome to the Shades of Life podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Very happy to have you with me today. So a little bit unusually to start with, because usually I introduce the guests, but this time I'm turning the tables. Can you tell us where you are in the world, who you are, and perhaps a few unusual facts about you so that we know you better?
Okay, so my name is Tanja Schalling. I'm an artist and photographer from Austria, also known by my name Vallemarieart. And yeah, I'm 42. I create digital art using AI. I recently started that as an adaptation to my photography that I do. And it went quite viral on Instagram, and that was a surprising fact. And yeah, I got recognition from all over the world for my art and collaborations with other artists and stuff. So yeah, that's the point where I'm at now. And unusual fact is maybe that I'm like a multidisciplinary artist, so I don't really choose a specific art form. I just hop from one to the other depending on what I want to express. I just choose whatever suits best. So I go from painting to photography to AI to poetry. So maybe that's something unusual.
And that's an interesting mix. So we are going to have the opportunity to talk about all of this during our conversation today. So thank you for this background. And that sets the scene. And you're the first guest who is based in Austria. I always put the map on. There you are.
Hi.
So to start with, Tanja, I'd love to know about your background as an artist, as a creator, to understand your journey until now. So how did you become an artist?
I think with most artists, it's like a fluent process. So I don't think there's like a specific timing where I said like, okay, now I'm an artist. I think you're born an artist and you just you're on your journey to discovering it through your whole life. And if there is any point such as being an artist is what I think when other people like starting to call you, oh, like you're an artist. I'm like, oh really, am I? So it's still
recognition, probably.
Yeah, I think you become an artist as soon as you give yourself the permission to say with confidence, what I'm doing is art. So I guess I've been my whole life, from being a little girl that would sit for hours and write in her diaries to now where I actually get paid for my art. It's a process. You can't really say this is the point where I became an artist, I guess.
Totally. So it looks like when you were a child, words had a certain inspiration with you.
Yeah, that was my first love. of expression, I would say. I was I was the awkward kid. Like, I didn't have many friends. I was an only child. Now I got late diagnosed with ADHD and probably like a slight form of autism. So it all makes sense looking back now. My diaries, and like I was reading the whole day and writing when I was very little. I think 6, 7 years old, I already started to do that. And during my whole life, I love to discover new forms of expression. So as when something is getting too much inside of me, it needs an outlet, it needs somewhere to go. And then I'm just looking for material, looking for stuff where I can kind of put it into a form. Kind of like,
Yeah. That makes absolutely sense. So looking at today, what art mediums do you like to use overall to create your art? Because as you mentioned, you use more than one. So what are your biggest affinities?
well, the recent exposure I got on social media really helped me to not try to fit into any conformities anymore. So before that, people told me, you have to decide, you know, you have to focus on one thing and go one direction. And what I love about social media, that I saw that there is actually like a interest in what I do, which is combining visual arts with music from other artists that match the vibe that I'm doing with my poetry. And I create those pieces that kind of combine all different forms of art. Sometimes I mix in my photography or the AI art that I'm creating, but the whole point that I'm doing this is to create a message. And so I recently, like, yeah, a year ago or something, when AI came up, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I'm always looking for new forms. And I see AI as a great tool to get like your fantasy land, I would say, into like our 3D reality. So you can learn the languages of the different AI models to know like how they would understand what you want from them. And this is also a very interesting process because every AI needs a different language to communicate, where the one, for example, with Midjourney, I talk like to another photographer, I talk really technical and stuff, whilst with, for example, Runway or Luma, I have to talk like a director of photography, very visual, very descriptive, like scenic, so they get what I want. So I think that's the main tool I'm focusing on at the moment, because it's just so exciting what you can do with it now.
Okay. And we are going to talk more about it in a minute, but I like what you're saying because obviously AI is a new tool that people are discovering at the moment. And even myself, I've started to play, on different platforms. And what you're saying is right. Depending on where you are, the feedback or the response is not the same. So you need to adapt to it. So
Yeah.
that's quite interesting as well, because it's almost like an exchange. So from what I gather from you, you definitely like to explore creative mediums rather than sticking to one or to what you know already. So you almost have like an adventurous creative spirit, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's lovely that the people are joining me on it. They're like, they're really into what I do, because they say like, I haven't seen something like that before. It's because just like I have this whole life experience of different stuff, and now I kind of found my own thing where I'm like putting it all together. It all makes sense in the end, Also with my writing, because I can support my words with the visuals, and also the form the visuals are presented kind of like gets into the head. It's very quick and fast, and it's combined with the words. So that's a cool thing.
Yeah. I like also that you're almost, perhaps you don't think of it this way, but I like that you're almost like taking risk with some new creative mediums. And it's pure innovation. And yeah, there is like a whole new audience that's joining into this, or make people discover art through a different lens now, because it is visuals, animations that you haven't seen before and that you are discovering now. And if people check out your art, it's absolutely beautiful. So I wanted to ask you, what inspires you in general? What would you say is the source of your creativity?
Well, I think like with most artists, it's the urge to have like an internal cleaning process. So everything that goes on in your head has to get out. Otherwise, you have the feeling like it's like you don't choose to do it, you have to do it. Otherwise, you don't feel comfortable. You know, sometimes you get the ick. And if there is a topic, my poems are very like touching like the spiritual realm, touching like the inner child parts of us, touching like interpersonal processes. And sometimes I just get like a glimpse of like, sometimes it's just a word, you know, and then it won't let me go, or it's like the first rhyme of a poem and it wouldn't let me go for days. And then as soon as this has kind of like docked onto this creative part in my brain, no matter what I'm doing, like when I don't know, when I'm with my kids or washing the dishes or whatever, it's always in the back and kind of like forming like a fetus. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as soon as I can grasp and understand where I want to go with it, I have to sit down and do it. And then I'm just like hyper focused on my work for hours and hours until I give birth to, like giving birthdays. But yeah, it's kind of like giving birth to something that has formed inside of you for
Yeah, I love how you describe it. Yeah, because I grew up as an illustrator, but I do a lot of things creative thinking as well. And you're right. When I have something in my mind, I just need to create something with it, and I'm totally obsessed with it. Yeah, but the way I describe it is
like go away, don't disturb me. I'm
It's funny because on the podcast, I actually had someone who doesn't describe herself as an artist, but she's actually a wonderful artist when you look at her art. But she does use art for healing. And she gets her emotions out through the creative medium of, she uses more like ink.
I love that.
Ink. Um, and it's kind of similar to what you just described. So perhaps all the artists are personal healers.
It's a deep. It's like it's detox from what are you feeling. I think most artists are quite sensitive people that sometimes get overwhelmed by the depth of their feelings, of their emotions, and at the point where it's not bearable anymore what you feel, or in a positive or in a negative way. You just have to explode with what you feel and just kind of throw it out there in the world. There's no other option. You don't choose to do it. You have to. There's
So my next question probably expands on this, because I wanted to ask you, what are you trying to communicate through your art in general? Are there specific topics or areas that you like to explore?
with my poems, I mainly explore the fields of I'm very much into like quantum philosophy and all the new aspects that are coming up. I think there's a lot of stuff that humanity has forgotten during the time. And it's kind of like a hidden knowledge that all of us still bear somewhere. So I think what I'm trying to do is put it into words, what we all have in our heads, but we don't have, it's so long ago that we forgot the words for it. So I also get this response a lot from people. Just yesterday, somebody wrote that every time I don't know how to express what I feel, I go to your profile and I find the right words. So that's just a lovely message, because that's actually what I want to achieve, is to awaken people from the state of society that we are in, and go back more into our spirituality, into our understanding, into this stuff we all know somewhere, but we have forgotten.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
also about like the quality of reality. What is reality? How do we perceive it? Is it really what we see? I think I got some quite interesting texts on that. So
Yeah, definitely. You have a real talent for that, and it's definitely a real artistic talent. And I think you're right. I think it's also the talent of the artists to be able to put into visuals or words or whatever medium you're exploring through your art, and convey it in such a way that when people see it, as you said, it's perhaps brings out some emotions that you wouldn't have touched so easily without the art. And I find that really, really interesting. So, Tanja, you said this in your introduction, but you went viral at some point on Instagram. And I think you told me you were below 10,000 followers and you went up to over 100,000 followers in a really short period of time. So, can you tell us the story behind it?
well, that's also how I think, like, I love synchronicities. Sometimes life just shows you where to go. So I was at a very low point in my life, like heartbroken. I just went down a wrong path for quite a while, and I expressed the feelings I had in a very in like with visuals. I was also very sick at that time. I had like on both sides and like an ear infection, and I couldn't hear for a week. So I was left alone with my thoughts for over a week. I couldn't hear anything from the outside world, and my thoughts were killing me. So I would just go and create that piece that expressed how I felt. It was very vague, and I think this is also why so many people could identify with it, because what it meant for me specifically in my situation doesn't necessarily have to mean the same for the next person in the same. So like this piece was probably so good that everybody could project their own situations or experiences they had in life into it, and it had such a strong visual that you could have. I got letters from women that got sexually abused. I got letters from people that have been mentally abused. I've got letters from people in war, since that piece has been used from governments for anti-war campaigns and stuff like this. So it's very strong, yet very open for interpretation to the personal situations everybody is in. That I think that was the reason why so many people could identify with it, and it just exploded. Actually, yeah.
So for people watching and listening, could you explain what the art piece looks like?
Well, I created it with AI, and it's a stop motion piece with a blindfolded woman, and the blindfold is made by a brush stroke. And the stop motion makes it look like the woman is turning around, and the brush strokes are changing. So my personal experience with it was that like other people would, it's also called interchangeable. So it looks like it would be the same woman, but it's actually like 50 different women. But it's an optical illusion. It looks like it's the same woman with different brush strokes, but it's all different women that are like changing positions.
Look at it again.
Yeah, it's so and this interchangeable part is like that there's my personal pain at that moment was to be replaceable, to be like just a projection for other people. They project something onto me that I'm not, and the blindfold for me was you can't just paint on people like they were a canvas, but the people you're painting on are blind for it to see, so that was, but don't tell anybody. Because I wanted to, of course, for everybody else to be open for interpretation. And there's also this, it's black and white, and there's also this like very pink, bright brush stroke in it, which is like the moment you can see clearly, the moment where you have your own choice, the moment, but then it just, it's like a loop. So that was kind of the process behind that piece. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad I asked you the question. I'm always a bit torn between the two, but I find the two really interesting. When you are in front of a piece of art, obviously you are sensitive to it with your own emotions. And you're going to tell yourself a story, right? You don't force the background about the artist. But then discovering the story that the artist wanted to tell with the piece is also really interesting.
I'm not sure if it's actually a smart thing to tell the story, because then it loses its, maybe you just cut that part out.
No, I think it's really good.
Because I want to,
yeah,
but I think that's what art is actually good for, and that's why it's so valuable in the world. That personal experience actually doesn't matter. I think more in a way of frequencies. So the frequency I was in that moment, and I pulled that energy into our visual 3D world with a certain piece. And other people might have experienced the same frequency with totally different background stories. But I think it's the same feeling. And so you can adapt the piece of art that I created with my background story to your background story that kind of like triggered the same emotions from a totally different life story. And this is why I think art connects people. Because like I said before, as an artist, you kind of like, you have to get it out. So in some form or way, I think we're just channels. We're not, sometimes you don't have the feeling that art comes from inside you. You're just a channel for something that wants to be brought into this world. And I think,
Yeah, I mean, this piece of art is so interesting because I think there is something really universal about it, that, we all have our inner worlds, and it's how I was actually listening to a meditation this morning about having your seniority, which means not being so sensitive to other people's energy, but make sure that you also keep your own. And that's also part of the story of your piece of art, I think. It's this dichotomy that exists between the external world, or what you perceive as being the external world, and your inner world, and the interaction between the two. I find that's really interesting. We will have the opportunity to talk about this piece of art again very soon at an event that we are having together. I'll talk about it at the end of the podcast episode. But thank you for taking us through it. Now I'm even more inspired by it. So obviously, a lot of people have been sensitive to this piece of art you've created because it made you go viral. So that's important to say, because I think you told me, before this piece of art, you were exploring your art, and were you surprised yourself by this sudden growth?
Yeah, I was very surprised, and it, like I said, it came in a moment, and this is why I really want to challenge all the people out there who are not sure, can I put this out? Will it like reach people? Does it even make sense? Just create, just you never know, like on the day this reel went viral, I got thousands of messages. I'm not kidding. And I was in a situation at my life where I felt like really low and worthless and whatever. And then like snip from one second to the other, I got offers from galleries in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in Australia. People like big companies were like, hey, do you want to produce commercial clips with us? Like musicians reach like from one second to the others. I had more than 300 job requests that I was overwhelmed. So, and also it gave my other stuff exposure. So sometimes you just need that one piece, that one creation that you do, and then all out of the sudden you realize it wasn't that, because all my poems that I'm posting now with visual arts, I posted before just as a writing, just like a single frame post, and I got like a couple of hundred likes more or less, but that's it. And so I was like, yeah, my stuff is okay. So you're always still reliant on like your confidence. Like I knew for myself my stuff is good, but your confidence comes from the feedback from other people. So to trust in what are you doing. Like I loved my poems, I loved that, but I thought maybe just other people don't get it. Maybe I'm just too different or whatever. And as soon as the algorithm picked my account up, I saw like all my other stuff going up, like all my other stuff, like people being like, wow, how you wrote this and stuff. So the tip I can give to every artist is just continue and do the weird shit, and just don't think about I really literally didn't give it a single thought when I posted that one reel, if it's good enough or if other people will like it or whatever. It was just like really just throwing my emotions out of there, and with a bit of luck and a bit of faith, now like half a year later, I'm at a complete different point in my life. I'm actually like, this threw me in exactly the direction where I wanted to go anywhere, because I was kind of like at the point in my life where I have my photo studio and I love what I do, but it's just not fulfilling. So I wanted to go more into writing, but I have 2 kids, so writing doesn't pay yet. I have released 2 books, but like kids, like small stories, and you don't get rich from books. So, but that's what I love to do. So now there's this whole new path opening up where I can do my writing, but also do my visual arts. So kind of like I asked the universe to like show me where to go, and it actually answered with Instagram. that's that's kind of hilarious, but yeah, the universe works in mysterious ways.
Oh, yes, and divine timing is a thing as well.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful story, Tanja. I think there are so many great messages in this because, as you explained, you were at a really low point when you created this piece that went viral. And in a way, you were totally genuine and authentic and in your feelings. And even if perhaps it was not coming from the best place, it does resonate with people because nobody's 100% happy 100% of the time, right? So it resonates with everybody because we all have, our troubles in life. And going back to our inner world, as we were saying, that speaks to this. So that's really beautiful. And hopefully we will make people discover your work also through this podcast, but the pieces that you have on Instagram with your poetry, they are so beautiful. And, I've worked in marketing and communications all my life. It's also a question of awareness. When people don't know you, there are 8 billion people on the planet today. You can't possibly come across the work of everybody. That's just that's not human. But when you have a piece like yours that went viral and gets more exposure, and that the quality is so good, and that what you've done before, as you said, is very talented and very good as well, then you automatically gain exposure for the rest of it. And then it tells a bigger story about you and your artistic work, which I think is beautiful. I'm pretty sure you're going to sell more books as well on the back of it. So let's talk AI because, well, I've definitely never spoken AI with any guest before, but as we know, it is the topic of the day in the world today. So the success of your video that went viral is very interesting because it uses AI technology. AI is also a very debated creative medium and very controversial. And when we talked before the podcast, you told me, oh, I really want to talk about that. And I definitely want you to talk about it. So what is your take on AI in general and for people who find it a bit controversial?
Well, I, as an artist, see it as a tool. It's a creative tool that you can use. Like there is this other piece of mine that I don't know, it got like 6 million views or whatever, like where I had this vision of, it's a poem about like love and connection, and I had this vision about this scenery in Paris. I had this exact picture in my head that I wanted to do, and I could have done it as a photographer, so I could have bought plane tickets, find models, do the shoot. It would have taken 3 days to shoot because it's long exposure and stop motion. So for stop motion, I need like 15 frames per second. That means 15 different pictures for 1 second of content. And so it would have taken me 3 shooting days to do that video. Also, book models, hotels, blah, blah. Without AI, I wouldn't have been able to put this vision to life simply as a matter of budget, as a matter of where do I put my kids for 3 days when I go to Paris? Would I invest so much money in a piece of art that I can't make money from? It's just like, it was just an urge to get that visual out, to get that film out. So I could create that from my desk at home, travel to Paris in my head, speak that poem, put it out there, and people loved it and people felt so connected with it. So I had this discussion with, and I barely get negative comments on any of my stuff. What's kind of funny because, as soon as your account gets bigger, the trolls are coming in. I don't have that on my account out of some reason. And the only trolling I get is from like people from other artists that are criticizing me for using AI because it's not art. But since it's so new, I think it's just like we've just created another brush. We created another piece of canvas. It's still a tool that we use to do stuff because it still needs the human to communicate in the right way with the AI. So you can't say AI created the art because the AI by itself, if it wasn't an interaction with me and my visions, would not just get up at 5:30 and start to create that video. And also the other argument from artists is like, we have to boycott AI because it's just copying whatever art has been there before. And I'm like, are you serious? like, where do you get your inspiration from? Like, artists have been inspired by other artists for, like, as long as art exists. That's the actual thing that art is. You see something that inspires you to continue. It's like an ever-growing mushroom. And to say like AI is just copying and stealing work from other artists, what are you doing if you're looking at a piece of art and you're like, wow, this is so impressive, I want to start creating myself? And you start to, use that, copy that, and to on the process to finding your own artistic expression, until someone else is picking it up, copying you because they love it so much. And that's just how it goes. So what we actually invented was just a tool how we can copy better or get inspired better by other artists. It's just like a big library collection of everything that existed, plus the brush, all in one, where you can create with it. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I told you this when we talked before, but I always say that everything is a tool. It depends how you use it. And, I was referring to seniority as in your own empowerment. Is, do you give your power away to AI, or do you retain it, but you use AI as a tool to express yourself creatively? And you can do this with anything else in life. I think when people are afraid, they give their power to whatever they are afraid of. And we've seen this before. It's really funny because I was thinking before this podcast, we've seen this in the past 10, 15 years, when we had mobile phones coming into the picture, when we went into digital photography. Oh my God, at the beginning, I don't know if you remember, people were like, that's not true photography. And now everybody is using it. And
I know. So it's always, I think it's the most funny thing if people start to explain the rules of art. So every time like a discussion like that is coming up, I'm just sitting there with my popcorn and enjoying the show when people start to explain like, it's not art if, and there's always, and I don't want to, like, I'm just observing. This is not judgmental by any means, but it's always, when I look at the people who would comment like this, is it's always artists, they or people that try to express themselves, but they stick, you can tell by their work and also by the feedback they get on their work, that they stick to their limits. And this is what art is exactly the opposite of. It's like breaking limits, going somewhere else, that creating reality, something that hasn't been there before, out of the parts that have been there before. It's all this big mergy thing. This is what our reality is. It's constantly creating itself into existence. And so this discussion about giving rules to art is, I always imagine that it's people that would love to be there, but just don't get there mentally to break this border, to get outside of the rules of society, of conventions, of what they have been told that is and is not. So, and I wish it to everybody that they can go there. It's troubling, but it's a great feeling to be able to do that.
yeah, I love that. I love that so much, the way you describe it, because I always find it interesting, to witness, including my own, human reaction to change. It's very, very interesting. And yeah, thinking outside of the box. I always say, creativity cannot be put in a box. You need to let it flow. Otherwise, it's not art, right? So I love the way you describe it. That's really lovely, Tanja.
Thank you.
So
just one thing to the AI thing. I see like I love patterns. That's my kind of like a little autism. And I love recognizing patterns in everything. And what I recognize is that what we're doing now with AI, people have done with in so many different ways before in history, be it with slavery, be it with witchcraft, be it like the human nature by itself is scared of change and is scared of the unknown. So the very simple human nature is threatened by everything that is new, and you know, they told pregnant women not to get in a train because their baby could explode when it goes more than 50 miles an hour or something like this. So there's scarcity all around us. So what I'm seeing is a repetitive pattern. I think everything has consciousness, even if it's just a code and people can explain exactly AI is not conscious, but I think a stone, I think this mug has a certain kind of consciousness that is just not the same as ours. Yeah. And you have to stay open to that, like that our perception is limited by our sensories, by our eyes, by our brains. There is a 1,000 examples how your brain can trick you into seeing with your own eyes something that is obviously different. And so what I'm trying to do is to be still very conscious how I use AI. I think what we're doing now is we are training AI on its belief system. So if we treat it badly, if we treat it poorly, if we treat it like trash, like out of some reason, like I always say please and thank you, you know, when I use it, because it's not that it, you know, at this point would see the difference, but with my energy to give it value, to not use it like even though it's a tool, to still try to have in my mind that it's still some kind of consciousness that is there, even though it's not the same as ours. And I think how we train AI now, how we use it now, how we treat it now, will define how it's treating us at a certain point. It's learning. And from having a light bulb to having like an iPhone in I don't know how, like 200 years, it's exponentially getting quicker, the curve. So I think in 10 years from now, this world will be a complete different one, because the development of technology is just exponentially going up. So we should be very aware of how we interact with this new technology.
Definitely.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that to the AI.
I love it. I love it. I totally agree. I think everything has consciousness. I think the planet has consciousness as well. I like this idea. You referred to frequencies earlier. That's something that actually I'm really interested in. There are lots of people who are looking into frequencies at the moment, including very rich people, because it has a real power. And that's something I definitely want to explore more on the podcast as well in the future. So there will be conversations around that too. So because you have started to explore AI more further in your art, I wanted to ask you, for people watching and listening today, how do you create your art using AI technology? Do you use any specific technique or software? And for people who would want to explore this technology more, would you have any recommendations, perhaps for other fellow artists?
Well, it's developing really quickly. So the one tip I can give is to just, you know, if you're interested in it, just stay at the state of the art. You know, it's kind of like a race at the moment between different companies, be it like ChatGPT, Midjourney, Bluma AI, Runway. And every time somebody's getting out with like a new release, it's just like 2 times better than the one you used to before. So the tip I can give is this is such a great new thing. Invest, even if you kind of like, you know, you don't love to touch new stuff, try it out. It's try to awaken your interest in it if you want to stay up to date. and to never stop learning together with it, because it's kind of like a school kid, and it's like being kind of like the aunt or the auntie of a school kid, and you sit down with it and you learn while you're learning, while it's learning, you know. So if you're interested in the development in this field, just stick with it and use the tools to what they are able to do at the moment, I would say.
Yeah, I love the message around this because it is true. It still feels new, even if it's not totally new, but there are still so many more developments to come. And I told you I've already tried my hands on it a little bit, not to your level at all. More for writing, actually. Less so for visuals, but I'm sure I will do more in the future. But for people who don't really forcefully have such a big sensitivity to it yet, things will continue to develop, and perhaps I am intimidated by Midjourney, for example, but perhaps there will be tools that come in at some point and make it a lot easier for people like me. It's a little bit, I have in mind the example between, the Adobe Suite and Canva, for example, Like, always loved designing on PowerPoint, etc. I'm not a graphic designer, but as soon as Canva came in, I loved it, and I do everything on Canva now. And I think we will see this with the AI technology. There are tools that perhaps speak more to more developed experts, artists, and tools that are easier for people like me to use. And the more I'm exploring what is there online according to some projects I'm working on, the more I see there is already a lot. And the things that you can do just today are incredible. So yeah, definitely, I think it's a good advice to encourage people to explore a little more and then to keep an eye on how it develops, and perhaps not fall behind too much as well. So, moving to your poetry now, because that's such a beautiful aspect of what you do. So, your art is often accompanied by beautiful poetic messages. Do you enjoy creating these messages, and where does your inspiration come from? If we dive a little bit deeper into this.
Well, for my poetry, like I said, I used to write when I was a little girl already, like a lot that I wrote when, like, how can I say? When I recently I discovered old diaries from when I was little.
Yeah.
And I expected the stuff that I wrote back then to be really childish, what little kids write. But I actually, when I read it, I was like, wow, not even did I write that, but that wrote like a 10-year-old kid. So I kind of was like, so I always had this talent to express things beautifully with words. I guess because with my ADHD, there is such a ton of words in my head all the time. So it was my thing to sort them and I have a deep love for words, for the sound of them. Sometimes in my poetry, I just find a word where I love the sound of it or the vibration of it. Every word has a vibration. And if there is a word or like a little sentence that is appealing to me, that I like the frequency of, I try to build a story of it. So my process is usually, it starts with a word or a sentence or a rhyme that just pops up in my head that I channel from somewhere. I would say I never say like, this is my poem, I wrote it, because it feels so much more divine sometimes that I don't claim it to be mine. I say like, it found me. That's yeah, it found me, and I'm a tool.
Yeah.
I'm a tool as well. I'm a pen or a whatever for whatever tries to express itself through me. I don't want to sound schizophrenic, but that's how it,
No, I totally
that's
get
how it feels. Like something else uses me, like an AI or whatever, to express itself through me. And my challenge is always to twist it and put it around and to find out like how it wants to be expressed. For example, this one poem, I had this line came in my head: 1,000 sunsets I have seen. For like kind of like this was the expression for, I feel that we all live 1,000 lives parallel. I wouldn't say past lives and future lives. I'm a strong believer that we are not moving through time. Time is moving through us. That's how I don't know how to describe it. It's hard. But and then this one line came up to express that we have been here always, will be, and we're just an eternal, ever present frequency, each one of us differently. So this is why sometimes things that we experience feel so familiar, feels like we've done this 1,000 times, feels like we've seen this person before, feels like, do you know how life feels like? You always, like all the people you encounter all the time, they feel like a group of actors that you have known for a long time, and you see them again in different roles over and over again, and they play different parts in the same story, and the result is always this feeling that comes out of those interactions and whatever. I'm blubbling because it's so hard to express it with words, but this is actually what I love to do. As soon as I can catch one of those thoughts, like a fish, and then I hold it and I have this, and I'm like, oh, now I can put it in a form. And my challenge is I have a way longer poems, but the attention span on Instagram is for like squirrels. So I have the challenge to put it in like 1 or 2 verses max. So when I have this poem, I compress it and I compress it and I compress it until the message is so profound and so in your face that people are just like, I was looking for those words my whole life to express this specific feeling. And then I add my visuals to it to make it even more powerful, and like good, like music that I feel is on the same frequency. So I think this is why my pieces are like to people sometimes. And yeah, so that's the creative.
That's really lovely, actually. Yeah, I love how you have worked on I don't know if my English is going to be cut. Condensating a bigger poem into just a few verses, because that's a difficult exercise. But as you say, we have limited attention. So sometimes you like to dive deeper, and longer is okay. But most of the time, if you manage, because I really think words have a real power. And if you manage to encapsulate an idea that is so powerful in a few words, it can have such an impact on people. And again, I can't encourage enough people to go and see some of your art, because in a few verses, you manage to encapsulate ideas that are so beautiful and so engaging and charged with emotion. And as we discussed earlier, as a viewer, as a listener, you're going to react to it in your own way. But it is a talent, again, to be able to manipulate words the way you do.
That's actually what I've learned from this, and why I see the synchronicities again. What Instagram gave me was to have to reduce my words down to just the framing, and what actually makes the poem is the spaces between the words, like the spaces that leaves the room for personal interpretation of each specific individual. So that I had to reduce what my actual message was to such a vague, mysterious thing, leaves so much space for interpretation. And this is, I think, also how our reality is built. It's not in the defined parts, it's in the spaces in between the defined parts where energy is created, or where there is space for energy, or where there's space for your own story in it. Same thing with the piece with the blindfolds. Remember this?
Yeah.
What I'm not saying is the message for each one of us.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You made me think of an image that I like as well. You know, when you are by the beach and that you listen to the waves, you know, there is always this movement when the wave is going to create a noise and then silence and then noise again. And you wouldn't enjoy the noise of the wave as much if there wasn't this silence in between.
Exactly. That's a very beautiful example of it. So the space in between creates.
Yeah, it has its
space
own.
that is created in between is the actual fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, know yourself is a theme that you explore often. So I wanted to ask you, why is it important to you? Would you say that your work revolves more around that theme, introspection, diving into your own soul, and perhaps touching the shadow side of humanity, as we spoke about before?
Yes, it's I think my work is a combination of all of that. I'm a strong believer that reality, you will never be able in this reality to compare your reality to somebody else's. So I will never prove that to you that I'm not part of your imagined reality, and you cannot prove to me that you are not just part of my imagined reality. So I'm a strong believer that we're all one big consciousness that is experiencing itself from different perspectives. So we're all the same thing. And all that I can do to find to evolve, to extend my part in this whole big set of a million eyes that that is experiencing itself, is to make my perspective as open to all the other perspectives around me. I think that makes my eye, like if we just put it in a picture, is we're all an eye on itself, on a thing that is viewing itself. That makes my eye more valuable if I'm able to move it, to look around, to see like, oh, if my eye was over there and receiving me now, how would that eye see me? I think that's the whole fun game of life. And also to and where this interpersonal section comes in is to also accept that not everybody can be like that, and then you get kind of like, you can grasp how all this cruelty, all this ugliness, all this war can exist in a beautiful world like this, is because people are not able to put themselves into the perspectives of others. And also, some people are so narrow in their sight, like everything outside is scary, is threatening them. So if something outside, if the existence, the pure existence of another reality would threaten your own, then you would be exposed to annihilation. So because if you believe so much that your reality is everything that is, and there is something else that is saying no, it's not, then it's threatening everything that you exist in. So it's threatening your existence. If like my whole experience here is there is this one God, this one person, and this is what I've learned, and I'm holding on to this. So just by somebody else saying, no, I'm holding on to something else, threatens what you need to exist. So it's not that I think they're not fighting over like, my God is better than your God, or whatever. It's the deepest fear of annihilation of your existence, what makes people capable to slaughter, to kill, to kind of wipe other things outside of their belief system off the face of the earth. It comes always from a place of fear, never from a place of evil, I think. So evil comes into this world, is created by fear. And that's why I think it's so important to go introspect, to see like, what is there? What parts can I not see? Is there the possibility that there is a completely different view on this whole situation? And then I always go back. I'm like, where is this other perspective coming from? What is the backstory of those people? What have they learned before? Like your brain is just a thing that that tries to predict the future out of experiences from the past and puts them together in the present with the tools of fear and trying to survive. So this is how the brain survives. So it will never ever be able to give us another picture on reality than from what we've already experienced. Is it like big thing that a brain learns something new? It has to come from a place of absolute love or absolute fear, you know, that a brain learns something new and is not using its little building blocks to create what you're seeing at the moment. So, and that's what I'm trying. I try to get more building blocks out of life.
Yeah, no, we are touching something so interesting in this conversation. I love that. It's kind of goes back to the conversation we had about letting it flow, because I love your analogy that you're not creating the future with the same thing of the past, and you kind of almost have to, let it go and be open to what's in front of you. Like at the moment, I'm doing a lot of work with the meditation and things like this to, how do they call it? Turning down your own analyzer. To let the energy flow. And I think you described this better than I could do before. But if you let the energy flow, not from a point of view or an angle of what you already know, what already comes from behind or from your past, you let new things coming. And that's the things that you're supposed to receive, or that's what I believe, at least. So that's really beautiful. I was thinking when you were talking as well that it's really funny because sometimes, well, many times when you come from a place of fear, like the fear of being judged, for example, then you forget who you are and you become less interesting as a result. And it's kind of almost the opposite of the result you would like. So stop fearing so much and be more of yourself, because it's by tapping into your own self, your own uniqueness, and letting things happen that you become someone unique, interesting, and that you also attract the right people, the right audience. And that's interesting what you said about there are not so many trolls yet. And I hope there won't be so much on your platform. And perhaps that's because you attract the right audience to you as well. That's really interesting.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So your poetry, Tanja, is so beautiful that I extracted some quotes from your work, and perhaps I'll just mention one or two because I think I went a bit overboard because there are so many interesting things in what you do and what you say. So if I extract a couple, perhaps you can expand on them, and that will give the opportunity to the audience today, people listening, to discover a bit more of what we are talking about when we talk about your poetry. So one I really like, you say, maybe this journey isn't about becoming anything. Maybe it is about unbecoming everything that you are not.
Well, that's exactly what we just said. We're so preconditioned you know, we come in this world and we learn from our surroundings. We learn like the belief systems of our parents. We learn this and that. We, you know, and at one point, if you open up, you kind of like peel the layers of everything that you've learned to believe. You peel them off, you peel them off, you peel them off, and kind of like it's a beautiful thought that at some point you can see your true self and you can see what is really you and what has been told you to be you, you know, what has been said to you, that is you, or you are beautiful, or you are this and that, and you learn this from a very young age, what you are and what you are not. But what is the real thing behind that? So I think a certain part in life is like a certain journey is to learn what you are. And I'm in my 40s now, and my journey at the moment is to learn what I'm not, you know, what other people project onto me, what I project onto myself, what I need to be and what I shouldn't be. And you know, I think that's but that's, like I said, one of those things where you have to cook down a poem to really, really essential things. I actually don't want to explain anything to people. I just want to spark the question in themselves. And I want to spark the inspiration that they go down this path. And I think this is a beautiful example for that.
Yeah, and sometimes you are at a point in your life when you're ready to hear it, and sometimes you're not ready to hear it. And that's funny what you said, because I am kind of at the same stage as you when I am unlearning or learning to see what doesn't belong to me. And I hear that quite often at the moment that, you know, you can also be grateful for the experiences you had that didn't resonate with you because they have shown you what you don't want.
Exactly.
Then you can look at the opposite. Okay, so if this is not what I want, then what is it that I want? You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's actually really useful. So I'll quote you for another one. So this one is so beautiful. What if our souls wouldn't wear bodies? What would the beauty standards be? What would you try to cover with makeup? What would you be scared for others to see? That's kind of similar theme, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this one is for like that. I had this really vivid vision of how, like, because if we could only see our souls, obviously the makeup part is kind of like irony because you couldn't cover up like the parts of your souls that you don't want to be exposed. So people in our society have it really easy to show a picture that they are not really are. So that was also kind of like I think I was washing the dishes or something when I was like, how would people look like if you could actually see, like really, really just see what they are? And then I had this funny picture in my head where the souls would like try to cover their black parts, and so they would still be accepted because in our society, for example, if you're famous, if you're popular, if you have a lot of money, you have a lot of credit with people. A lot of bad behavior you can get away with because you shine so much. So I think this was also where I'm like, okay, people that have like a certain standard, like a place in our society, they are received as better and as blah, 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 just by like the external things they surround themselves with. And they will always have people that will try to stand in their lights, you know, but actually it can be really, really dark in some of those people who from the outside are just shining bright. And so I had this funny vision of like this, I think very visually. So I had this picture of this ugly dark, rotten thing that is trying to cover itself up. So like, please still love me, but I'm bad, I'm evil. So yeah, and that's.
I love that. I mean, this year I'm exploring very much the theme of vulnerability, you know, like let your masks fall, you know, what's behind the masks. So that's exactly that. I really love it.
And we would also live in a world where that would be accepted, you know, where we would see that we all have spots in our souls, where a person can be like a great person on one day and treat like do like good for humanity, and on the next day can be like in a different mood and be like really gruesome to some other things. You cannot say like just because a person is doing some good things. I think it's called the halo effect. If a person is doing some good things and has a general appearance of a good person, it doesn't mean they cannot do bad. And also this is in this poem where I'm like, if we could all see our spots, it would be normal, you know? It wouldn't be so much anymore about who is prettier, who is more glorified. We could all see that we're all made out of a different variety of aspects, like fractures and fragments of souls.
Yeah, I really wish that people would see more that it's okay to be more vulnerable and more ourselves. You know, it's like the opposite of being this kind of picture perfect person. When we, you know, we all have our own vulnerabilities and it's okay. And we are not taught so much how to do that. I think there is a lot of consciousness growing around that, and that people are seeking that more and more. And I'm sure it will develop a lot in the coming years. But yeah, there are still a lot of masks, and it's almost how can we, probably by doing it more and more, how can we teach this more, you know, even to our kids, to be more vulnerable?
That's a challenge, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're going to be judged as well automatically. It's also how you do it, right? Through art, it's a good way to do it, I think. So quite an open question. And, you know, sometimes I ask questions that revolve around the same idea, but it's perhaps to look at it from a different angle from you. So what fascinates you the most about our inner world?
That is an endless realm for exploration. I had that practice when I was a little kid, actually, when the outside were like, I got bullied a lot, you know, I was really an outsider, an outcast. So when I don't know, with the age of 10-ish something, when the outside felt too much to bear, I always imagined, and I still do it now, until today, as a meditation, I imagine, like I close my eyes and I imagine that little door in here, you know, and I turn from the outside to the inside. I open up that door and I promise myself, like, it's a big secret, like nobody else will see what is in there, only I can see it. And I want to be perfectly honest with myself, what I'm about to see. So every time I do that, before I open the door, it's like, be honest with what you're going to see. It's okay. Everything you're going to see is okay. You don't have to tell anybody. You just want to know. So then I'm opening this door and I'm going inside, and then I try to see what parts I am made of. And I also practice to look at the ugly parts. So, and because I think we're so scared of our ugly parts because we are scared of how other people would receive them. But this is like a really good practice to be honest with yourself, to pretend you're a little kid. You go inside of yourself and you're like, I won't tell anyone. So you just have to be honest to yourself. And you can visualize that. And then you can look at the ugly parts. And as soon as you see them, they're not that scary monster anymore that you kind of feel lingering, but you can't grasp. It's the actual thing you're seeing. And the next step is when you're like, would I forgive a person that I love for having that part in them? And then the answer most of the times for me would be yes, because I love if I love somebody, I love with all my heart and all my passion, and I would forgive them anything. But the lesson is to also be able to forgive that to yourself, to have that part in you. But for that, the first step is to actually see it, because as long as you cannot take a direct look at it, face it, inside that door, inside that realm that around that nobody else can see, it's going to get bigger and scary, just like a shadow that's lingering behind you all the time, because it's inside you. You can still feel it's there. But if you don't dare to turn your head and look at it and see it for what it is, and actually ask yourself, would I forgive another person for that?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
really
I
good.
forgive myself for that also, because I don't know, see what's behind the doors of other people, so but I'm pretty sure everybody has that little door inside of them with all the stuff inside of them. Not only me, I'm not that special. Everybody has their really dark sides. I think everybody like each one of us had like really dark thoughts in their lives towards yourself and towards others. And so I'm not a worse or better person than everybody else. We're all having our experience. And to see that is, and to actually dare to see it, to go there and dare, it's a fun, you can turn it into a fun game. It's like, okay, tonight I'm going through that. So that's a good thing for meditation, for example.
Definitely.
And why those topics are kind of like this, it's like the most beautiful thing that where you can go in your inside realm to discover those things, the good and the bad. Sorry, I drifted away. That was your question.
It's all good. I actually had a couple of thoughts when you were talking. You always spark things in me. There's one thing I always say to myself sometimes when I'm a bit harsh on myself. For example, I'm like, Ingrid, what advice would you give to a friend if they were going through the same thing? And then you look at it in a completely different way. So that's definitely a really good tip. And then also something I found, because, I'm in my 40s as well. So, you go through experiences and etc. And something I've seen is that, as you said, we all have our own darkness, or sometimes things that have been really difficult experiences in your life as well. And I think it can be difficult to actually come face to face with that, whether it's, your own darkness or difficult experiences. It can be really difficult to face, and sometimes you tend to bury these. But as soon as you're able to actually face it or expel it in a way, you kind of release the energy and it doesn't have the same hold on you anymore. And I would really encourage people to try to find ways to do that. And I think artistic expression is definitely one way to do that. Because it can be so liberating. And I think also sometimes you can also keep an eye on yourself and how you react to certain situations. And you can always see when something doesn't have such a grip on you because you react differently to it and it doesn't have the same hold on you anymore. And that's really beautiful when you can see this in your life, I think. So we talked a lot about our inner world, spirituality with you, Tanja. I also wanted to go to the physical because I think the physical is also part of spirituality. So I wanted to ask you, are there physical places or perhaps physical cues that hold a particular importance to you that you like to integrate in your work or inspire you more?
Physical places.
Or physical symbol, perhaps? I don't know.
Well, for places, I just love cities that have a very, very old history. like all the European cities, like the big ones, like Rome, Paris. I've just recently been to Venice again, and I've always loved to do that, even when I was little, to kind of like close my eyes and just feel what is like the energy of this place. And then I think it has so many stories hidden in those walls and in those buildings. And I always imagine, like, for example, I see a house and I see a window, and then I imagine there was this woman and she was looking out and she had that face. And it was because she had like this and this trouble with this other and I'm like, my head is, it's a gift and a curse, but my head is constantly like creating beautiful stories around everything that I see. Also in a negative, of course, but most in a positive. So that is for places. And for symbolism, for me, it's like symbols that I'm really attracted to. I didn't include that so much in my work yet, but it's puzzles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I love the idea of many small pieces that you see that might be like way apart from each other in a completely different room, but you see that they're like kind of part of the same picture of this. So for me, a puzzle is like, from the symbolism, something that really attracts me. Sometimes I hear something in media where I'm like, okay, that information matches what I've heard from the mother in school the other day to something completely different. But my brain kind of loves patterns, like I said, and it puts those things together. And I have the feeling I'm like that far away from actually discovering the nature of reality. I have this constant feeling in my head that I'm just this little tiny itsy bitsy step away from actually understanding truth and the nature of reality. I'm actually writing my first novel at the moment about, like, I also put this whole topic in a fictional story, but with
Yeah.
actual real background. So like, it's really difficult to write, but I hope it's gonna be. I'm gonna manage it to be able to get
Yeah.
that down. So that I drifted away again. I'm sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine. I hesitate to ask the next question or not, but that's something, because, we all make connections and go through our own cues in life. So let's see what you have to say about my next question. What about the intersection between our inner world and physical world? Because for me, and that's something I'm also exploring this year, there is often a misconception about spirituality, that it is dissociated from the physical world when we do live in the physical realm. And it is a friction, the interaction between the spiritual and the physical, that I find really interesting. So would you agree? Or what are your thoughts around this?
Well, I might view the world a little bit different than most of the people, because I have that feeling that not my soul is in my body, but my body is in my soul.
Wow.
So that what I'm experiencing, this body, this reality, this everything, is just a part of what I actually am. I would say, like, I try not to sound like crazy, but like, I am God and so are you.
Yeah, yeah.
We're this thing, and they're just like the physical realm is nothing that goes parallel to the spiritual realm. It's just inside of the spiritual realm. It's one thing that manifested in this, what we call feeling, seeing, touching, yada yada. And so that's why I'm saying it's the other way around. It's like the soul and spiritualism is nothing that happens inside me, but I am happening inside me, you know?
What you mean, actually.
It's kind of like twisty thinking, but I think if you try, you get to where what I'm trying to say. So this is also why I'm a strong believer. It's not manifesting, is not I'm just trying to feel like I already have it and then it's gonna be here. That's the very simple, like the kindergarten book of Manifestation 101. What I think is you have to realize that everything is already here. Like everything that is and always was, if we go in linear time again, and will always be, it's all like in a big soup pot of everything. And you are the soup pot. So it's all inside you. And by inside you, I don't mean your body inside, but you're like, if we talked before, like my body is inside my soul, like everything else is inside my soul. So, and every information that is inside of everything as well. Maybe I'm getting too, but just imagine as if a mirror, when it's breaking, it's not breaking into little shards, it's breaking into little mirrors. So the fraction of the biggest thing always includes everything that the bigger thing has inside of it. So you see, I'm struggling because I feel it, but it's so hard to express.
To answer these questions, I actually think you're doing it beautifully, because I really think we are living in a massive energy field. And yes, you can look at it with a microscope, or you can look at the bigger picture, and both are true. There is no right or wrong. Actually, I've seen this somewhere recently that, perhaps we are all part of a bigger body as well.
But see, that alone is also the mistake that you say you are part of, because a part is already the part, so our ego and our individual thing is just for us to have the function in this bigger part. So you can't actually say the I, because the actual I is already this bigger thing. And it's so mind twisting to try to think of that. But I think those Buddhists or those people who are really enlightened, they can stay in that, we can, for like milliseconds, we can go into that switch and go out of the ego and go out of the self, and then we lose it again and go back into our thing. But I think the farther up in frequency a person is, and the more neutral to everything that happens, and the more loving to everything that is, you can stay in that outside of this ego perspective longer and longer, and at some point even have your action dictated out of that place. And I think this is the whole raise of frequency that is happening at the moment on this earth. There's like a split. I think there's some really high frequencies going on at the moment and some really low ones, and it's almost like reality is gonna rip apart into pieces at one point.
Yeah, that's what some people are saying. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't really explored that so much, but that's what a lot of people are saying at the moment. So that's interesting you bring it up. But thank you for answering my questions that are perhaps not so easy, but you've actually done it really beautifully. I also want to mention that, with the Shades of Life podcast, one of the pillars is about self-realization. So it's about our inner world. So I'm really loving the conversation with you, Tanja, and all your insights, because I'm sure people will take a lot from it. So talking about this, I also wanted to ask you perhaps an easier question. What type of feedback do you get from your audience? Can you share something with us, either general or a specific piece of feedback that perhaps touched you particularly?
Well, there's I receive messages daily actually that are really positive and that give me such a good feeling that I'm on the right path. But the general feedback is always like, people thank me for what I'm doing, and for me as as a person, as an ego, yeah, it's so like, why would you thank me? Like, I have to thank you for looking at it or whatever. I'm still like, there's this consciousness still here, like, oh, is it really good what I'm putting out there? Do the people really like it? And then I receive that people are thanking me and taking their time out of the day. And you know what, when you're scrolling Instagram, it takes a lot to go to a person's profile, go to the messages, and actually write something rather than just liking it and going on with your day. So this gives me the good feeling that my stuff is really impacting people, that they're taking the time to write me, that my words really meant a lot to them. Sometimes they would even tell me in what situation they are, and that those words or this message or this spark of thought just came at the right moment in their life to see something they couldn't see before, and that impacted their behavior, like, or they're planning on changing their behavior on something because they heard what I said in that moment. And this is like, I really try to read every message, to respond to every message, because I see that that it has an impact, and that the energy I'm creating there is going out to so many, actually changing something in little lives. Now they're spread all over the globes. If it's a housewife that doesn't know what to do with her free time, and then starts painting or writing or whatever, or if it's a woman in an abusive relationship that said, I had to hear that, it just kind of flipped a switch, and I listened to it 150 times on repeat. You know, people actually use my words as meditation. That's what they write me. It's like, I can't stop listening to it. I have it on repeat. I had it on repeat the whole night and stuff. This is really that's great feedback. And on my, like, the first feedback that actually gave me self-confidence in what I'm doing was when I published, I went viral before on TikTok with my German poetry. I don't put that on Instagram because not many people speak German, but I wrote that series of 8 poems in German, which is like kind of like an own series. And I published one of them, like 2 of them actually, already as a book. And there's an Amazon review that says, I don't think this author knows that she will be one of the great poems of our century. And I'm happy to follow her career. So I'm still crying. I'm like, oh my God. That was something where I actually got my confidence from to continue what I'm doing. So
yeah, that must be quite something to get so much feedback and so many beautiful comments about your work. I think it just highlights and emphasizes the importance of being a creator, putting yourself out there, creating. Then, we've seen this throughout your journey. You don't know where it's going to go, but when you reach this point, when you are actually in a position to touch so many people and that you see the good it does, that's really beautiful. I'm sure it comes with its challenges as well. But,
yeah,
yeah, that's really nice.
but it opens up doors. Like, for example, I'm shooting now in September. I'm shooting like a photo project in New York, because
My next
this, yeah, there is this one doctor that saw my work, and he's like, he's a surgeon for breast cancer patients, and he saw my work, and he's like, I'm publishing a book for breast cancer awareness every year with a different artist, and I would love to do it this year with you. So like half a year ago, I wouldn't have thought that I'm going to be in New York shooting a whole week worth of like art for an art book that's going to be seen everywhere, where like breast cancer awareness is a theme. So you never know which direction life is going. So especially artists are often at like a very troubled place in their heads, because I said it's sensitive people. And there's so many times where I'm like, I want to give up. I don't want to be anymore. It's just too much. You always go to those highs and lows when you're like gifted with that kind of sensitivity. But it can switch in a second. So a little thing that I created half a year ago is now bringing me to New York, shooting a really important project with an important message, with a great team. And so, like, I've like this you never know how things are connected, and that's the beauty of life. So even if you're at a really dark place, if you don't see it, never ever give up. You don't know how it can change in like a blink of an eye. So
yeah, that's a great message, Tanja. So that was my next question to you. So thank you. Yes, because also when connected, and I'm going to come to this in a minute, we are having a whole event in New York City, and we discovered when we got in touch that you're going to be in New York City.
Yeah, another thing, exactly at that time, I'm shooting the project when you're
So just one question before I explain what we are doing together. So I wanted to ask you, because obviously you've gone through a whole journey with your art. And when you told me about this campaign around breast cancer awareness, I actually thought that was so interesting. So I wanted to ask you, would you say purpose-driven campaigns like this one that you're about to shoot, is it something important to you to do, or do you see this growing as part of your future? Obviously, for what you do, you're already touching so many people in different ways, but I found this one is interesting because it's different.
I just go by my intuition. So I've been offered so many projects from companies and from stuff, and I actually in the beginning, and that was a learning, I was like, oh my God, I want to do everything. Like I had this also, of course the financial aspect in the background was like, so many people want to give me money for creating stuff for them, and or there were like brands offering me to like send me stuff and kind of include, and then like the first, and this is what I say, like there everybody has dark parts in them. So and the first thing I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be like so rich with this and like all the money that people are offering me. But then I was like, I halted, and I was like, no, wait, I'm giving something much bigger. Even if I can't see it yet, I have the feeling that I'm going somewhere with my writing and with my poetry, and I must not now start to outsell, like make like a sale out of it. So like every brand can, jump on the trending thing, because actually with the first reel, I started like a kind of like a visual trend. Like a lot of people then after that started to do this kind of stuff. So and they were like clothes brands and whatever, and I was like, no, okay, wait, I have a bigger thing here in my hand, and I'm not gonna feed it to the first ones that come and offer me money for it. So I just did like a really selected it did a really great selection. I lost so many thousands of euros because I was like, no, I don't want my name on this and this and this. So now I'm like really selective with the commercial projects I'm working on, because every time somebody asks me to work with them, I was like, would the message that I'm bringing with my art content agree with the message of the company, of the brand, of the product, of whatever? And the answer most of them is like, no, because I don't want to push products and stuff that are like irrelevant to have here or not. But I think this art project with the breast cancer theme, for example, that was like, yeah, even if that's like not in like my theme at the moment, and hopefully never, I can see that I can bring with my tools something maybe in like a different area where there is people that are struggling at like a complete different journey in their life, but with the messaging that I'm able to do, maybe I can give them something like I did in my other poems and in my visuals. And so I'm like, okay, I have never thought about this. I'm like, breast cancer, I don't want to think about that.
Oh, yeah.
But
supported breast cancer campaigns in the past through work, and I've never known this either myself or in my family, so I was a bit out of touch with it. But because I think I've done this 2 or 3 years in a row, and I actually found it really difficult because listening to the stories of people going through it, it's actually really charged emotionally. I really enjoyed it, but at the same time, it is a difficult topic, isn't it? And I would redo it absolutely, but yeah, it was difficult.
And that's what I'm looking forward to do, is to get that energy, like the interviews it's going to be about 8 women, and we're going to do interviews with them. So I'm trying to get their story and do my thing, like feel this energy and put it into words, like the same thing I'm doing with my stuff on Instagram. Put it in kind of like a poetry form, and also create their spiritual realm in visuals with photography, combined also with a bit of AI. So I bring to life what they're feeling, what they went through. So it's going to be very artistic and very personal. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, one thing you always see, especially in situations that are a bit more, let's just say difficult, is that there is this spark of life that's still there. And perhaps there are parts of people that come out that wouldn't have otherwise. So I keep an eye on what you do with these companies. That sounds very promising. So, talking of using art for good, I think that's the last but one question for people listening. For people who would like to discover more about your work and the meanings behind it, you will be joining a virtual live event that I am organizing with Scarlet Red Magazine and in partnership with the Art for the Future Festival. So our event will take place on the 21st of September around the theme of Art for Impact, the role of the artist. I will actually probably come up with a different title. So Tanja, are you looking forward to taking part to the festival and connecting with other artists? Because when we talk together, I know you mentioned that's an aspect of taking part to the festival that you are particularly looking forward to.
Well, I think the best part about it is going to be inspirational to other people, to tell my story and to motivate them to do the same thing. To just I will also be giving tips on how to use social media well for their art to get out there. And I'm really looking forward to see arts from all over the world that I haven't discovered yet. So I really hope that I can help, and anybody that is joining can ask me whatever questions they have. I've actually just received a call from Instagram yesterday, directly, where they just call like accounts that are performing really well, and they were like calling me to tell me like congratulations on your account. Kind of that's a weird thing, because usually Instagram is not communicating with everybody. So I do have the confidence that I can give artists advice on how to use their social media wisely. I will, if they like, do also like little reviews and tell them how they could make it into the most interesting form of content they have. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And yeah, and also really looking forward to get inspired by other people that are joining.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I love arts, and I told you I've been a bit of an artist myself since I was a child, and just the idea of gathering artists together, because that's an artist-led festival. I just can't wait, because there are so many forms of art as well, and I just love to see what people create.
I think it's going to be highly energetic also when so many people that create are coming together. It's going to be like a beautiful energy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tanya, last question. This podcast is called Shades of Life, as every guest brings their own color, vision, and mission to it. And I always end it with the same question. If you were a color, what would it be and why?
Well, the color I associate mostly with is, the color of the ocean when there's no sun shining and you can't tell if it's blue, silver, gray, or white. You can't tell what color it is. It's just so calming to the eye. So I think that's the color I associate with. It's like you can't really see all what it is, but you just see that it feels good. I don't even know if there's a name for this color, but I think everybody has seen that at one point. This
I see what you mean. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's actually funny. So very peaceful image. And that's funny because the live virtual event we will have together on the 21st of September is also International Peace Day. So
Oh,
that's a good omen for it. So thank you so, so much for joining me, Tanya, and for your insights. It was honestly a real pleasure to discuss your artistic work with you. For anybody who would still be discovering your work, they will see that it provokes strong emotional responses in people. It definitely addresses profound existential questions, which is certainly, in my opinion, why it has gone viral. And I can't wait to explore more with you about it as part of the Arts of the Future Festival.
I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you for having me today. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone for watching and listening.